There we go. Good evening. Good morning. Terrible morning, dude. It's a fucking horrible morning. I hate my life right now. Fuck all this shit. See if we can find something to watch. Fuck. I've been watching some pretty funny shit. Especially some Wendy and some me. No. Oh fuck, Nimrod was hilarious. Billy John is on. That's something you can watch. Oh my fucking feet. I don't want to go to the hospital then, guys. I can't even afford 2 days. Is it Wednesday? Yeah, dude. I can't afford to go to the hospital. I have stuff I gotta do. Got a job I gotta do, is what I'm saying. Okay, so right now, who's gonna be the skull dude? Skull dude and me that can't breathe. Uh, oh. Why's life gotta be hard? Oh. But is it the ginger ale or the bright ass cream soda that I can't drink? There's the question. Uh, Dude, fucking sucks here right now. Oh. Oh. Woo. Cool Billy. What's he doing? Banging shit. Bang it out. Ouch. Man, I'd say thank you very much to Wendy for exposing me to so many people that I think are absolutely hilarious. Wendy does a great job. Um, Sunny's not there. Uh, hey bum. Hey bum, what's up? I can't sleep. Yeah, hold on.
Or near done.
Hey, what
Let's
the
do
hell?
it. No way.
There you go.
That's cool. He likes art. Oh yeah, he's had several art galleries. You know, I'm gonna put this back on. It's very cold in here. Yeah, Andy Dick has several art galleries. He loves art. First day we met, the first day we met up over here, and he actually remembered me. I
I
freaking
think I just fucked
painted a
that link
picture
up.
with him over there.
Ugh.
Oh fuck! Did one of my buttons come off? I think one of my buttons came off with this thing right here. I'm gonna have to sew another one on. Do they have any extra buttons? You know, I'm gonna have to buy a new one of these. I've had this for a while. This is like my signature freaking flannel. I've had this. I'm gonna go buy another one. It's falling apart. It's old. My signature flannel is falling apart, guys. Get a new one. What company is this again?
Ah.
Pride and wait. Freedom. What the fuck?
Oh.
Freedom Foundry. That's what it is. It's a Freedom Foundry. Okay. I need to get a new one of these. They're only like $30.
You want Kit Kat? What? Ow! You want? Where'd Billy go? Him in the chat over there. On water. up, bitch.
Hi, Simper.
Oh.
They're all Sims, brother. No, they're not. No, they're not. That guy who said he was going to give EJ a fucking $100 next time she go live, he's definitely a simp. He is designated as simp of the night.
They're all simple, bro.
The most simple man in the chat.
What's in hype?
If he was a woman, his name would be
Ow,
Simpelina.
fucking bitch.
All right.
Shut up, cat.
Where's my steak? Oh, God.
Look at. You want to go on the balcony?
I was hanging out with people one time. They're like, have you seen the show Shameless? And I was like, no. They're like, you haven't? Let's watch it. And I was watching that show. I was like, I don't really like this show. I was like, I don't really like this show. I'm sure if I was like, it was different circumstances, I would have loved it, but I just wasn't feeling it at the time. You know, I'm pretty picky about my shows. Yeah, there's nothing on. There's like nothing on. There's like no new movie where I'm like, I have to go see that. Not in a long time. When's the last time? Let me think of when the last time was where I saw a movie and I was like, I have to go see that. I remember The Dark Knight. I remember The Dark Knight when that came out with Heath Ledger because Heath Ledger passed away.
Huh.
I remember I was like, I have to see this because I'm like, it's his last movie, and he wasn't like my favorite actor. It was just weird that he passed away, and he was in like 10 Things I Hate About You when I was a kid, and that movie was funny. I was like, what? And then also one of my buddies went midnight surfing with one of the cast members in that movie. Yeah, I can't think of any movie like after that. Like what? There's definitely some movies after that. Like I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to see Gone in 60 Seconds. I was like, I have to see that. And now when I watch, I'm like, this is the cheesiest fucking car thief movie. It's like cheesier than fucking Fast and Furious. That's why it's so good though. The cheesier.
James and Fast and Furious.
Dark Knight was fucking sick. Yeah, Dark Knight was pretty good for the time, 2009, right? That's when it came out. Yeah, 2009, I think. Oh, I can't remember. I'm fucking hungry. My brain's going. Where's my steak?
Heath Ledger's that movie?
Inception? Are you? I didn't like Inception. I couldn't sit through that shit. I can't. Yeah, I wasn't really into Inception. I wasn't. What the fuck is it about anyway? Like, oh, it's a fucking okay. Like, it's a dream movie. I know you're fucking with me. I used to actually know Heath Ledger in real life. I had a friend who was close friends with Heath Ledger. That's cool. He seemed like a nice person. I didn't know him. No, it was one of his last movies. I think there was this other one he did that was his last movie, but that was one of his last movies. I can't remember the last one. I didn't like that movie though. I thought that movie was really weird. Oh God. Yeah. Yep. I'm about to go to sleep soon. That's right, my steak. I'm passing out. And I can't believe this thing is not working. I think maybe I have too much. Oh wait, that's not it. I have too much. Maybe I guess I have too much memory using my phone. I don't know. Mr. Magmarus' Wonderful Empire. Or Emporium. Oh. Yeah, I didn't like that movie. A157. Hold on. I'm just looking at something real quick. Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay, well, I'm definitely buying a smoothie in the morning. It's around $10. I'm like, I just found this fucking $10. That's going towards the smoothie. Okay, there we go. I can't even really see that shit. Dustin Hoffman is one of the greatest. He's one of the greats. Yeah, Dustin Hoffman is hilarious, dude. He's an amazing actor. I agree. When he played Captain Hook, that was insane.
Oh yeah,
He's like, Peter. He's
Oh
like,
my God.
Shmee, don't try to stop me, Shmee. Shmee, try to stop me. Yeah, he's awesome. But I can't read the chat that well. Why are you bringing up Dustin Hoffman?
he was in.
I'm tired. Hey, you take care of Andy Dick for 2 months and see how it fucking affects your sleep schedule. He's like a 57-year-old baby. He's like, I need to splash. It's like, it's fucking 5 a.m, dude. Chill. Go to sleep. He's like an unbroken comedian. Not a housebroken comedian. Oh, this girl. I tell you that the Lyft driver who he was driving with, he pissed all in her car. And she's like, you pissed my car. I was on the phone with him today. And he's like, I'm gonna pay for it. And I'm just like, how are you gonna like what are you talking about? Like, what are you like you're gonna pay for the shampoo? Like you're gonna get it reupholstered? Like, like what the fuck? Like, why don't you piss in someone's car? Like, that's what I mean? That's like the worst place to piss. One time my buddy's uncle was like fucked up in a lift and he just started pissing. And the guy who was driving was African American. And while the guy in the car was pissing, they're playing the song. They're playing the "I Have a Dream" speech by Martin Luther King.
No.
And this guy was like pissing all over this guy's brand new car seat, and he was like, "Got to go to the hospital." Like, Lyft driver, and he pissed all over the seat. And it was while they're playing "I Have a Dream," and I was like, and the guy happened to be white, but the Lyft driver was black. And I was just like, did you have to like piss on his seat like while like he's taking you to the hospital like and he's listening to "I Have a Dream"? Like, that's fucking insane, dude. But that happens. But when Andy pissed on that driver's seat, there was no excuse for that. He didn't need to go to the hospital. He was just wasted. And what happened was they probably gave him 2 bottles that day instead of just 1. It's like, you fucking idiots. Like, of course he pissed himself. You gave him 2 bottles. You're not supposed to give him 1. But he hit me up. He told me he had no food, no vodka. He's doing real bad. I'm like, oh, that's not good. He's like, when I come back to your house, I don't ever want to leave. I'm like, what the fuck? Oh, shit. Billy used him and he used you. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? Like, no. I swear to God. I'm smoking this weed. I have to go get Andy, you guys. I have to leave. Goodbye. No, he's gotta take the train back himself, you guys, from Ohio. That might be a little dangerous. You know what he asked me today? He asked me if I could ask the chat to give me money for a private train car. And I'm like, why? And he's all like, oh, let's get a private room car back. I'm like, that's like $1,000, bro. Like, I'm not asking my chat for that. Like, not even that you guys, first of all, the chat would give it to me. But why would I be like, oh, me and Andy need a private train car back? I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, you're just going to get a regular train seat, buddy. so fucking wrong. HUD told him to take a bus back. He's like, take a bus. And Andy's like, bus? I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, there's really no reason for him to leave, and now you have to figure out a way to get him back. It just seems so retarded. He wanted me to get him the train ticket today, but I was just like, I don't know. Chill. Oliver, shut up.
Oh.
He can get on the train by himself. So he's got a bad memory right now. I don't know. He's got a pretty bad memory. He's got a horrible memory. I mean, when you guys walked out of the room, he didn't even remember that you guys even came to the fucking house. I was like, yo, my homie's out there. He's like, who? He's like, who? I'm like, my buddy, he was just in here smoking with us. He's like, who's that? I'm like, are you serious? Like the guy who just walked in and out of the room, you don't remember? He didn't even remember you guys were in there. That was weird. No, but same thing with my uncle. He'd walk out of the room sometimes, and I like and my uncle would go to 7-Eleven, and I'd be like, my uncle's coming right back, and he'd be like, who the fuck is that? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do you not realize who that is? His memory is bad. That's why I worry about him going on the train. But he'll be able to make it. I already told his wife, I'm like, I would meet him like somewhere here, like at one of the stations. But yeah, he's gonna have to make it himself. He went all the way out to Ohio. He's gonna have to make it back. I'll help him get the ticket. But I can't go out there. That'd be retarded. What am I gonna do? Buy a train ticket out there so I can meet him so I can take a train back? Fuck that. Just give him a ticket and we'll live stream a few more times before Thanksgiving. Then he's got to go hang out with his family. If Jessica Elba, what does that mean? He has a family. Yeah, his family. Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen his family I've seen his like actual kids like one time in the last year. His family doesn't. They don't ever. I never see them. So sometimes though, like okay, I hate to say this. When he just shows up randomly, I do call his family and ask him for money. I'm just like, because if he just shows up randomly and he hasn't live streamed me, I'm not going to buy him a bottle. So I'll just call up his family and be like, yo, let me get some money for him to get a bottle. And they'll try to make excuses and shit, but they'll just give it to me. Because it's like, why should I? One time his wife's like, hey, have Bailey live stream. And I'm like, he just showed up at like 7 a.m. Like, what do you want? Like, what the fuck? Give me some money to buy him a bottle. And so they did, but this is a little bit weird. You know, it's like your husband just showed up here, god damn it. Demanding a bottle out of me at 7 a.m? No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's but for real though, it's a little weird. She's trying to get me to teach her how to learn how to use StreamYard today. She's got it down, dude. She's basically got it down. That's good. Once he's set, once he's on, he has to sit on the fucking train. I'm gonna talk to the there's like a thing to where you can actually talk to Amtrak and give them like a special note, because I had to have this like fucking straight mental patient get on a train one time. So yeah, you can like make like little notes and shit, and like they can help out or whatever. I don't fucking know, dude. Like, why would he just? We're hanging out, dude. You were the loser. Remember when I said that he just? Remember I was like, dude, he just left randomly. Remember that? That's when he went to Ohio. I was like, stupid. I was coming back with like a bottle with him and shit. And I'm like, yo, where you at? And he's like, I'm on my way to Ohio. I'm like, okay, bye. I'm like, don't you want your sleeping bag or any clean clothes? Yo, so get this. You guys, when we see him again, he's going to be wearing probably the same exact clothes that he left my house in. Only in the future still. You guys are going to be like, what the fuck? He didn't bring any clothes. He just brought the one outfit. And I was even asking before I'm like, bro, are you sure you want to just go there in one outfit? And they're like acting like just like it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, okay. I'm like, that sounds really stupid. Whatever. He literally straight left. Yes, and went to Ohio with no clean clothes, no fucking money, like nothing, dude. Right now, he's not eating. He has no drinks. He's not doing shit. He's begging me to come live stream so he can get some donations or even possibly make some donations. I'm just like, okay. I'm still sitting here eating Whole Foods. Nothing's changed. Smoking weed. Doing nice lives, like not subjecting myself to weird abusive shit like at the prison stream. I can't do that right now. Let me muster up some more time and let me have a little more fun, and then I'll go do shit like that. What? Yeah, yeah. Okay, you're biting your nails. Is Gucci's taking care of Andy now? I mean, do you want me to say yes? Like, well, she doesn't even know where he is, but like, yes, she is.
She probably doesn't know where she is.
How did you figure that out? These are the best thumbtacks. You guys, these are wooden thumbtacks right here. I fucking love these. Dude.
All the way wooden?
Like, these are the best I love these thumbtacks. I want to just buy these and just decorate my place with these wooden thumbtacks in this jar. Oh shit. No, seriously. I love these guys. Wooden thumbtacks. I'm so blazed. I'm like, yeah, wooden thumbtacks, doggy. They're not like your traditional like plastic thumbtacks. I have better thumbtacks. Fuck you. No, you don't. All right. All the way wooden. Yeah, they're wooden. They're wooden, doggy.
Like come the pin too?
These are straight wooden. You gotta be careful when you're hammering with them. You gotta like be really careful because you can actually. They're so wooden. These are so wooden, dog. This is straight wooden tack.
Oh, shut up!
Look at that shit. Well, anyway, you're better fucking. Yeah, it's made from wood. Gucci's tried to mount him. What did you think? You thought the metal part was better?
Yeah,
bro. Are you crazy?
Yeah, I am.
What the fuck? Okay, now the steak's probably close to getting done. Guys trying to distract me. Matt, no. Okay, yeah. Okay. That's the wooden doggy. Okay. Okay, bro. I don't know how blazed you are right now. But I'm getting there. Dang. Oh my god. Okay. This is gonna be for breakfast tomorrow. Man, food is really getting really expensive right now. I'm definitely gonna start growing more food in the future. Oh, and I've been buying more popcorn too. Look at that shit. This is straight Arrow, I think, of popcorn. All organic. Look at that. Organic.
Oh.
I honestly don't. I'm not gonna lie. I do not like the way this popcorn pops. I like the other popcorn I had better. But whatever. Maybe I haven't tried it good enough yet. Like maybe I did it wrong or something. I'm so amazed right now. Wooden thumbtacks. Who would have thought? Who would have ever thought that in my generation they would make wooden thumbtacks? They never existed before. Dude, wooden thumbtacks. You have a fridge. Why the fuck do you shop every day? I don't, bro. I had to get that Swiss chocolate. I haven't been to the grocery store in a while. But then, today I went and, I bought a few things. Will I go back tomorrow? Possibly. All right. I like to buy fresh meat like right away and eat it. That's one reason why I go to the grocery store a lot. But also just to say hi to everybody who works there. Like, they're kind of I've been going there a lot. They're my friends. And, sometimes I'll just buy like a few sodas or something just to say hi to people in town. Like, what up? Like, Wooden Thumbtacks. What is there going to be a hipster band by tomorrow named Wooden Thumbtacks?
There should be.
Like, we are Wooden Thumbtacks. And like, the corporate man is taking your job. It's like, what? Wooden Thumbtacks. And then someone in the band plays like a ukulele. Someone plays like a fucking like sitar. And then someone else plays like a fucking all right, whatever. You can stock up on things, okay? Fresh meat is glorious. Yeah. My dad used to go hunting a lot, so yeah, you're absolutely right.
Can I change the title of this stream? Is there some way to do it?
I'm reading I'm
Here we go,
reading the fucking screen. Because my stupid ass phone's the chat went off on it. Like, don't you just find that a little suspicious? You know which movie I kind of want to watch right now, even though it's oh no, I don't want to watch it. Whatever. I kind of want to watch the movie House on the Haunted Hill. The first one. Wooden Thumbtacks. I don't know why I even like those, but I just needed some thumbtacks, and like they didn't have any. Okay, let's be honest. They didn't have any thumbtacks where I went. All they had were these, and I'm like, fuck it. And I bought them, and now I love them. That's why I just decorate my house with wooden thumbtacks everywhere. Billy, what about a church stream? Take your Bible and pray. Are you? I hope you're joking right now, dude. You want me to? You know where I would go? Even though I probably wouldn't let me stream, I would go to a Buddhist temple and meditate and hang out next to the Buddha and film that shit. But there'd have to be like some hot like Buddhist girls there, so I could make it interesting. I mean, I'm already picturing me meditating, and I was like boring. So you know what I mean, bro? You want me to go to a Bible fucking place, dude? I have a Bible right here. Isn't that good enough, dude? I wish a little bit of dust would have came off. It would have been a little more cinematic. Yeah, bro. Here, let me read a word out of the Bible. Go. All right, bro. That's as much Bible reading as I think we're gonna do today, Matt. All right, that was my fucking Jay and Silent Bob.
It sucks. Trish only sent 2 of my throwing knives and didn't throw them. In here.
I need my wooden thumbtacks. They're organic, gluten-free, vegan wooden thumbtacks.
Gluten-free.
Made with freaking cruelty-free freaking aluminum scrap from the fucking scrapyard. Driven from old used vehicles. No, I don't know. Whatever. I'm taking a little bit too far. I don't know where the fuck these came from. Do you guys hear those sirens?
Yes.
I didn't do it. No, I can hear them. They're coming in. If they get really close to the Billy Barn, we got to run outside. Damn. They're getting close.
Let's get them.
I bet someone threw that loaf of bread on top of the movie premiere. They're getting hella close.
Oh, wow.
Let's listen for them.
Yep.
They're getting like right here. You guys hear that? Fire thing? Damn. They're pulling right to my place. Hello? No, it's him. All right, now they're right there. They're that way. No, they're gone, guys. They're gone. We're good. There's probably God knows what going on down there. Hey, look, there's me. I'm on TV. All right.
He really was.
You can do it. Yup. Think about the money. Kick is located in Melbourne, Australia. Run now, doggy. I have a police scanner. I don't want to go out there. I can't even hear the sirens anymore. I don't want to go out there. Fuck that. I'm going to sleep soon. My steak. My steak. My steak. Fuck that. All right, it's almost done, you guys. I'm going to give it like 2 more minutes and it's done. 2 more minutes. Take me to dinner. They're coming for you. What the fuck did I do? Fucking teach them how to live stream really well? They want a piece of you, Billy. They're coming for you. You'll never take me alive, coppers. Yo, that guy was nuts. Dude, that guy with the fucking whatever kind of hair was nuts. You guys, that guy was nuts. Holy shit.
So we're gonna MIT the casino today. Is the plan. Also, I don't know where nobody is.
No. In the name of Sam Pepper. All right, my steak's pretty much done. I turned the oven off. Bake your steak. Don't make the mistake. All right.
Let's see if we can find some.
He was something else. Yeah, that guy was.
No controller, huh? Lift to Mambo. Wow. Wow, that girl looks like she stabbed the cop in the face. Ugh. Hey, stop.
What
don't I understand, Drew?
It's just hard to process this, okay? Up until now, I've only seen a hydraulic press destroy things, and now
Drew, I thought that's all they could do.
we are watching it build a hammer
Also, it's being used for good.
as he's satisfyingly pressing in with the top piece. Now, the fact that the hydraulic press is building a sledgehammer, which is meant to destroy other things,
The whole time.
might fall for more mayonnaise.
What don't I understand, Drew?
It's just hard to process this, okay? Up until now, I've only seen a hydraulic.
This is the perfect time to prank the cat with the most evil plan. She lays there in a deep sleep and doesn't notice the shrimp in front of her nose. But with the smell of it all around her, dreams of sunny beaches in California probably start popping up all through her mind. Eating shrimp and dip or ceviche while sunbathing on a nice towel, sprinkling catnip on a steak from a window seat overlooking the waves. You can even see her start to chew instinctively, gobbling down those perfectly.
Fuck that. Neither one of those.
Oh my goodness!
Ah.
He actually put a hole in the floor.
No.
Go. Oh.
Caitlin, what?
Caitlin. Shit. I don't know what that one girl is about.
Nobody, no matter how big you are, can hold me in a headlock. I can get out no matter what.
You're
Oh.
very tiny. You're saying, is
Yep.
it a technique? What is it? Just run away?
Have me in the headlock, fully locked up.
You're
And I get out.
gonna let him get you in the headlock first.
Absolutely. I will let
Yep.
you fully lock in place headlock,
So-
and I will get out in,
And
like,
you
Yep.
in less than 5 seconds.
I want to see it. Get up. I'm gonna put you in a headlock right now. Okay. All right. So stand here.
Yep.
So you're saying I can control
You
the
watch.
scenario to put you in the headlock?
Yeah.
Are you gonna throw me over your shoulders?
No.
I don't want to do that if it's on
That's-
the break or
That's a
something.
lot of energy exerted. I know it's next to no energy exerted.
She's so confident. I'm a little bit nervous.
Just do
Does
it.
that make you
Okay,
feel
just
better?
do it. All
Okay.
right.
You
all
get
right.
out.
Here we go. Here we
Let
go.
him get you in.
Okay, here.
I smell burnt hair.
Nobody, no matter how
was
big
really
you are,
good.
can hold me in a headlock. I can get out no matter what.
That was really good.
Did you just pay for $10?
I did, and I put on the wrong one, but it's
Yeah.
okay, you can have it.
No, I won't even take that much. So,
Okay, well, you can fill yours up and then.
are you sure?
Yeah, you're good.
I'm not. I feel so bad.
But I wasn't, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, do you want to just like pull over here, like, and then you can just like take whatever is here?
That's all yours takes?
Yeah, it wasn't like super empty, so
Dang. How long have you had your bike?
I've had it for like 2 years probably.
Nice.
Yeah, I do like all the stunt riding stuff like that. So I'm all wheelies and all that crazy
Do you have
crazy
like,
stuff.
a bunch of friends you ride with? Or
Yeah, I usually ride in a big group.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you guys ever ride? Well, never mind. I don't know the streets. But whenever we go to church on Sundays, we always see like a big group of guys on bikes, and they're like doing wheelies and standing up.
Are y'all like around here or around like
It's
Dallas?
North Fort Worth.
Did you just pay for $10?
I did, and I put on the wrong one, but it's
Yeah.
okay, you can have it.
No, I won't even.
It's 1 second on. Takes 3 to 4 seconds to
Oh,
turn
I've
off.
seen
That way
one
it
of those
doesn't
before.
accidentally turn off during
This guy's got a glove.
which we don't want. The patent is that this only
Watch what
works on
happens.
skin. So it doesn't
Watch
go
what
through your
happens.
clothing. If I had to get
This-
distance and go to my weapon, I can hold my weapon and it's not going to affect me. I'm not going to shock myself. The
It
same thing
shocks you.
goes if when I get you in a position and if I need to cuff you, I can grab the cuffs. They're metal. Here, you can grab them. It's not going to transfer. It won't transfer to you. It doesn't go to you. That way, there's no shock to you. So if I get you in a, let's back up 1 second. I get you in a standard. I'm going to hold your skin so you can see that it won't transfer to me. If I had a partner, he could have a hold of you. It wouldn't transfer to him. I can be escorting you. If you started to resist, I'm going to take you. I'm going to say, Jeremy, go to the ground. Jeremy says, no.
Oh my God.
That's worse than the fucking thing. It's 1 second on. Takes 3 to 4 seconds to
Oh,
turn
I've
off.
seen
That way
one
it
of those
doesn't
before.
accidentally turn off during
This guy's got a glove.
which we don't want. The patent is that this only
Watch what
works on
happens.
skin. So it doesn't
Watch
go
what
through your
happens.
clothing. If I had to get
This-
distance and go to my weapon, I can hold my weapon and it's not going to affect me. I'm not going to shock myself. The
It
same thing
shocks you.
goes if when I get you in a position and if I need to cuff you, I can grab the cuffs. They're metal. Here, you can grab them. It's not going to transfer. It won't transfer to you. It doesn't go to you. That way, there's no shock to you. So if I get you in a, let's back up 1 second. I get you in a standard. I'm going to hold your skin so you can see that it won't transfer to me. If I had a partner, he could have a hold of you. It wouldn't transfer to him. I can be escorting you. If you started to resist, I'm going to take you. I'm going to say, Jeremy, go to the ground. Jeremy says, no.
Oh my God.
That's worse than the fucking thing. It's 1 second on. Takes 3 to 4 seconds to
Oh,
turn
I've
off.
seen
That way
one
it
of those
doesn't
before.
accidentally
Hey, man.
You ever by chance found like a necklace with a puma on it, have you?
No, not yet. Did you lose it today?
No, my friend lost it like a week or so out here.
$89. Another quarter? Oh crap. I think I found their thing. Yeah, I think I found your thing. You said it had a panther.
No fucking way.
Is that it? Is that the one?
Whoa.
Hell yeah, dude.
No way. Oh my lord. Dude. Bro, I
That's
got
what's
this
up.
shit in Patagonia.
You
in
gotta shout out
Chile. Hey man, you ever by chance found like a necklace with a...
Have you heard of the Russian scientist who injected himself with a 3.5 million year old bacteria?
For fun?
For science.
Oh, okay.
So this Russian scientist named Dr. Rothbach, digging in the permafrost in Siberia, they discovered this bacteria that was so far down, it was still living. But they tested this bacteria on mice, plants, and the mice and plants lived way longer, and the crops didn't die as fast when it was cold outside. They're calling it the elixir of life. They're saying that this thing could contribute to people, animals, and plants all living longer than they should. There's a town pretty close to where they found this bacteria. The people lived way longer than all the other people in the region. So he was basically like, I want to try it on myself. And he said he hadn't had a cold or flu in 2 years since injecting himself. It got me thinking in the Bible times how they lived 900. You wonder if like that is a bacteria from the first days of creation.
You taking that bacteria?
I would take it.
No.
Have you heard of the Russian scientist who injected himself with a 3.5 million year old bacteria?
For fun?
For science.
Oh, okay.
So this Russian scientist named Dr. Rothbach.
Paint your car Vanta black and see if it disappears at night.
This is $500 of the blackest paint in the world, which apparently absorbs 99% of all light. I started by covering up my entire garage, then taping off the parts I didn't want painted on my car. It took several hours, but I really wanted to see what this would look like because I've heard that this will make things disappear. The problem was I've never actually painted a car before, so I wasn't sure exactly how to go about it, and it took a lot longer than I was expecting. I sprayed it over with several coats in between, trying to use as much of the paint as possible. However, I was noticing that as it dried, I didn't look nearly as black as I expected. And I wasn't really sure what to do, so I decided to keep painting, then let it dry for a full 48 hours before taking it out to see what it would look like in the dark. What should I try next?
Paint your car Vanta black and see if it disappears at night.
This is $500 of the blackest paint.
Looks like some pretty fresh paint. Pretty fresh. Like they just painted over.
Is there anything in life that could actually make me happy? What is that?
Young man, there's no need to feel down. I said, young man, pick yourself off the ground. I said, young man, 'cause you're in a new town. There's no need to be unhappy. Young man, there's a place you can go. I said, young man, when you're short on your dough, you can stay there. And I'm sure you will find many ways to have a good time. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA.
还记得你探身走路，今生在开花照着黑，当我找到你，是在你眼睛，心无旁骛地。我们还有一个简单的先进的方式。
I don't know how to fix this. Will you just call Dad?
I'm way ahead of you. I already called.
Shop owner Joy rides Miami.
This one's too fun. This belongs to some YouTuber kid.
Yeah. A supercharge if you want good top end, turbocharge if you want better low end. He acts like a little spoiled rich kid.
He's always been a spoiled rich kid. His parents are always rich.
Shop owner joyrides, my hobby.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna take a little
You're still wearing your engagement ring, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it back to him. Do you want it now?
I mean,
Don't give it back. Well, no, I'm not gonna keep it.
thank you. That's a Bitcoin. You're still wearing your engagement ring, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it back to him. Do you want it now?
I mean,
Whoever this guy is right here is going to have a kind of a rough time for a little bit. He just had a negligent discharge into this clearing barrel right here. Now, this is why we have clearing stations, like in training areas and things of that nature. Like if you're in 29 Palms, you have to clear your weapon before you go into the chow hall, for example, or the PX, or, you know, a lot of other company areas. It's like that in a lot of installations in general, because it forces the person to take a moment and take into consideration what condition their weapon is in. Because ideally, you should always know what condition your weapon's in, but
our business partner came to look at it and they wouldn't let him go inside. He said it smelled like cleaning agents, real strong on the outside. We clean out a lot of stinky houses. We buy a lot of stinky houses. This one doesn't smell at all. But in that bedroom, it looks like somebody might have died and not been found for a while. But then the more we got to cleaning, the more we noticed there's like blood on the wall, blood here, blood around.
Chocolate.
I feel like I'm the opposite of a pedophile. I'm 21 years old, but on the outside, I'm just a little boy. And so I get asked about my age all the time. How old are you? How old are you? No, I'm not selling you fentanyl. How old are you? And it gets annoying having to answer this question all the time. So over the years, I've started to have fun with it. And I sometimes tell people that I was never born. And that I have been present through all of what has been and what will be.
Here comes he. Oh, okay. Yes, make some fucking noise.
What is K2 and why is it so big in federal prisons?
Oh my God, because K2 is where they can't, if they give you a urine test, it's not going to come up in your urine. So instead of smoking weed or like some people take Suboxones and it come up in your urine, K2, it doesn't. So everybody smokes it.
That shit fucks you up.
What?
Now, like I would go to the bathroom at night and they would have a chair in the bathroom stall. And I'm like, what's this chair for? They're like, come over here 10, 11 o'clock at night. You'll see why. What are you seeing some of these guys do on K2?
Yeah, I seen a dude so high one time off K2. He got high, he started smoking. He burst out the room, start running. I'm like, Waz. He like, he get to the middle of the floor and he just start throwing up. And he got like orange throw up. His throw up was like orange. Then he jumped down on the ground and started like swimming through it. Like, I'm in SeaWorld. I swear, don't lie. I could die right now.
What is K2 and why is it so big in federal prisons?
Oh my God, because K2 is where they can't, if they give you a urine test, it's not going to come up in your urine. So instead of smoking weed or like
(25I-NBOMe) is a potent psychedelic phenethylamine. It's active at less than a milligram and is typically sold on blotters. Beginning in 2010, it became a major drug on the psychedelic market and has often been passed off as LSD, partly because of misrepresentation and partly because of its low safety ratio. 25I-NBOMe has caused significantly more deaths and dangerous responses than the average psychedelic. If you believe you have LSD, you should always test your sample just to be sure. With the Ehrlich reagent, LSD leads to a purple result, while 25I-NBOMe does not. As always, there will be more information and links to references on thedrugclassroom.com, which you can find using the link below. Among the positive effects are closed and open eye visuals, auditory hallucinations, euphoria, mood lift, stimulation, increased creativity, introspection, music enhancement, and occasionally some entactogen or pro-social qualities. The negatives can include confusion, agitation, panic, anxiety, nausea, thought loops, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, vasoconstriction, muscle tension, and a higher risk of seizures. 25I is a little shorter than LSD, but it lasts longer than psilocybin or 2CB. It's also a more stimulating psychedelic, placing it closer to LSD than psilocybin, though the stimulation usually isn't overtly intense. The experience reports for the drug span the range from bliss and introspection to terror and confusion. This is to be expected with psychedelics in general, but 25I may have a somewhat higher likelihood of making people confused and even a bit delirious. A big contributing factor, however, is dose. A lot of people jump into using the drug at 1 milligram, but that's not a good idea. 25I's common dose is 500 to 800 micrograms. Although confusion remains possible at that dose, you can decrease the likelihood of negative effects. Some people even find it can be a very clear-headed psychedelic if you take a moderate dose. The visual effects from 25I are often compared to LSD, and it might offer more visuals. It can significantly distort the appearance of your surroundings, cause trailing, produce fractals and geometric patterns, and increase the vibrancy of colors. Some people claim the visuals feel less natural than those from LSD or psilocybin. I'm not sure how real the difference is. Part of it could be coming from cases where 25I doesn't produce much introspection or a sense of profoundness. If your experience is filled with visuals, yet the headspace is fairly normal, the experience might feel less significant and even somewhat boring, but that should shouldn't be taken to suggest 25i can't cause introspective experiences. Many people have reported full psychedelic effects and similar benefits to what can be offered by LSD or psilocybin. As with any psychedelic, the effects are bound to vary. The perceptual changes are not limited to the visual domain. 25i can also cause auditory distortions, tactile sensations, and smell changes. Synesthesia, a blending of the senses, is sometimes reported. There are highly variable reports about how pleasant the experience is. While this is only a tentative evaluation, it may be a little more likely to be overwhelming and dysphoric, though if you stick to a common dose, you could very well receive euphoria and mood lift. When it comes to psychological negatives, confusion and anxiety are some of the greatest issues, especially if you take a high dose. 25i can result in thought loops, and an inability to complete basic tasks. At the worst end of its cognitive effects is delirium, a state that can be dangerous for the user and for those nearby. People have sometimes engaged in self-harming behavior due to their delirious and frightened state. Again, this is a very important reason to stick with a common dose. Often, the delusional experiences are accompanied by aggression and agitation. Occasionally, people will like the intense mental activity. It sometimes facilitates ego loss and personal insight, for example, but that's not a good reason to take high doses. Common doses are much less likely to be overwhelming, and they can be relatively clear-headed. If you want to experiment with more powerful mental states, it's better to do so with drugs like LSD. On the physical side, some of the negatives include vasoconstriction and muscle aches. Users have reported numbness or coldness in their fingers, toes, and other regions of their body. These are pretty common negatives. Even though the body load of 25i may be a bit less pleasant than with LSD, you'll typically be safe as long as a common dose is taken. Another frequently mentioned but difficult to verify aspect of 25i is a higher rate of lasting negatives. It may cause HPPD and dissociation at a somewhat higher rate than other psychedelics, but this hasn't been confirmed. When taken buccally or sublingually, the drug lasts for 7 to 9 hours and has an onset of 30 to 90 minutes. 25i is a phenethylamine and a derivative of 2CI. Like other 2C drugs, 2CI was synthesized by Alexander Shulgin and described in PCOL in the 1990s. 25i has a methoxybenzyl moiety added to 2CI. As such, it can also be called 2CI NBOME. The term NBOM comes from N-benzyl and OME, a shorthand for methoxy. With the 2-methoxybenzyl addition, the drug has a higher affinity and potency compared to 2CI. That impact of N-benzyl substitutions was initially reported for a substance called 25B-NB, a derivative of 2CB, in 1994. Multiple studies have consistently shown 25i has a high affinity for the 5-HT2A receptor, and it appears to operate nearly as a full agonist. Various assays have found it doesn't quite have complete full agonist properties. We don't have data on its functional selectivity, meaning its ability to differentially trigger intracellular signaling pathways. One hypothesis is that it preferentially triggers the PLA2, arachidonic acid pathway, but that hasn't been confirmed. And even if it is true, we don't fully understand the 5-HT2A receptor, so we can't say for sure exactly how the various signaling pathways result in different effects. Beyond 5-HT2A, the drug also seems to bind to 5-HT2B and 5-HT2C. It operates as an agonist at those receptors. Most other receptors bind the drug in a relatively weak way, but there are conflicting results in a few areas of its pharmacology. The primary thing we know so far is that it's a potent and fairly selective 5-HT2A agonist. Pharmacokinetic papers have so far supported the existence of extensive first-pass metabolism and therefore insufficient oral bioavailability. Hepatic CYP enzymes appear responsible for its metabolism. It appears to at least be partly metabolized by CYP3A4 with contributions from CYP2B6, CYP2C9, CYP2C19, and CYP2D6. CYP3A4 is also found in the gut gut, so metabolism could also occur in that region. These results suggest CYP3A4 inhibitors could make 25I more dangerous. 2CI is a known metabolite of the substance. This explains why 2CI is a common toxicological finding in case reports, but since it requires a much higher dose, the amount that's produced does not really contribute to 25I's activity. Another active metabolite appears to be 25I-NBOH. A light dose is 300 to 500 micrograms, a common dose is 500 to 800 micrograms, and a strong dose is 800 to 1000 micrograms. Blotters typically range from 500 micrograms to 1.5 milligrams. Because of that variation and its low safety ratio, you should never take more than one. Also, because of its potency, you should avoid intranasal use. Most of the fatalities and dangerous responses have involved intranasal use or multiple buccal doses. Ralph Heim at the Free University of Berlin synthesized 25I-NBOMe in 2003. In the following years, it was studied in scientific settings. It was quite a few years before recreational use began. Labeled 25I, specifically carbon-11 25I-NBOMe, has been studied as a radio-labeled tracer for PET imaging. In the mid to late 2000s, David Nichols' lab at Purdue began investigating 25I-NBOMe and related drugs. They examined the structure-activity relationships of the series, among other things. It wasn't until 2010 that the substance started to appear on the market. 25I-NBOMe was one of the first, if not the first, to become available. It also became the most popular member of the series. Most of the time it was sold in blotter form, though there have also been cases involving powders and liquids. Much of the time the blotters are pure, yet they can also show up containing other NBOMe analogs or other psychedelics. 25I was primarily sold in three ways: as a legal alternative to LSD, as itself, or misrepresented as LSD. There's been a lot of incentive to sell it in place of LSD due to there being a higher profit margin. At least when it was legal, the drug was available in powder or blotter form for under $1 per dose. Misrepresentation was also enabled by some of the blotter designs used for the drug. Designs that have classically been associated with LSD were appropriated for 25I. Many of the purchases occurred online. People could buy it from darknet markets or from vendors in China, though for a time there were also clearnet vendors selling it. With the appearance of fatalities and negative coverage from the media, many people developed a negative or at least highly cautious stance towards the drug. Data from the EMCDDA, compiled in 2013, shows how widespread the drug became in a short period of time. Authorities in countries like Belgium, Finland, Sweden, France, and the UK were reporting seizures of thousands of blotters at a time. There were also cases of 10 to 100 grams of powder being seized, sometimes originating from China. 100 grams of powder could create tens of thousands of doses. The price was low enough to enable sellers to flood the market with 25I, both in Europe and North America. Multiple deaths attributed to 25I showed up in those regions, and there were also some cases in Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. From 2011 to 2013, the DEA reported 795 instances of 25I-NBOMe being seized in powder or blotter form. The first case was in 2011 in Wisconsin. More than 35 states eventually reported its presence. When there was an outbreak of cases in Virginia in 2012, the state placed it in Schedule 1. The first case series in the US was presented during 2012. It involved 4 teenagers in Michigan. 3 of the 4 had seizures, and some required significant medical treatment. The drug had been ordered online. The 2012 Global Drug Survey found it was the most popular NBOMe. Of the 22,289 people who responded, 442 said they had used 25I. Energy Control, a drug checking service in Spain, received 56 samples of the drug between 2012 and 2013. Nearly 80% were sold as other drugs. Half of those were sold as LSD. The DEA reported at least 19 deaths allegedly linked to 25I, 25B, and 25C by 2013. It was emergency scheduled in the US that same year. According to the DEA, the drug was being seized in large quantities, primarily from Asia. That scheduling was extended in 2015, and the US permanently scheduled it in 2016. Over the years, there have at least been dozens of deaths from 25I-NBOMe. Even though that's still a fairly low rate overall, it's much higher than with other psychedelics. As such, the drug typically has a negative reputation. Because it's illegal in quite a few countries, the presence of 25I has seemingly declined as of 2017, though you should still be vigilant when it comes to testing your drugs. 25I NBOMe is Schedule 1 in the US. It's a Class A drug in the UK and is Schedule 3 in Canada. The drug is also scheduled in various other countries. If you can verify you're only putting less than 1 milligram in your body, there's a low chance of serious harm from 25I NBOMe. Because we know so little about the drug, safety still can't be guaranteed, but 700 micrograms is clearly safer than 2 or 3 milligrams. Because the potentially fatal dose is so low, it's dangerous to take more than one blotter or to use it intranasally. With a 25I overdose, which can start to happen with as little as 1 to 1.5 milligrams, there are quite a few adverse effects. Those include severe confusion, agitation, tachycardia, hyperthermia, sweating, and hypertension. Most of the highly dangerous cases have likely involved a dose that's at least a few times higher than the common amount. Severe cases have included seizures, rhabdomyolysis, metabolic acidosis, renal failure, and coma. Thrombosis is also sometimes present. Serotonin syndrome is sometimes used to describe the symptoms, though it's not clear if the average overdose should be diagnosed as such. Some of the core symptoms of serotonin syndrome are clonus and/or hyperreflexia with tremor. Those have sometimes occurred with 25I, but not always. Regardless of the exact classification, excessive serotonergic activity seems to underlie many of the dangerous effects. Between seizures, rhabdomyolysis, hyperthermia, and thrombosis, there are multiple routes towards organ dysfunction, organ failure, and cardiopulmonary failure. Outside of direct physical toxicity, 25I NBOMe can also trigger behavioral toxicity. There have been cases of people harming themselves and even killing themselves under the influence. Confused, delirious, and self-harming behavior might be somewhat more common with the drug. That's another reason to stick with common doses. You should avoid combining it with stimulants, other psychedelics, tramadol, and other serotonergic drugs. More information is available on the Drug Classroom website using the link below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. You can also email me with questions. The Drug Classroom is exclusively funded by donations. If you want to support, please do so on Patreon.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to announce that local recordings are now available on StreamYard. Have you ever done a recording where your guest just had terrible internet issues? They were blurry, they were freezing, you could almost hardly hear them. Well, with local recordings from StreamYard, you'll be able to download a perfect quality video from your guest after the show. This means that no matter what you or your guest's internet connection is like, you'll be able to download the perfect high quality recording every single time. You can also download both a separate audio and a separate video file for the hosts and guests. Now with StreamYard, you can have freeze-free studio quality recordings on any connection, anywhere in the world. You can choose to download them, stream them later, or edit and repurpose them. It's your turn to test out local recordings today, now available on StreamYard.
Beg me for mercy.
In today's video, we're doing a deep dive into the substance LSD, commonly known as acid, and what it does to the human body. It's going to be a trip. Let's do this. It's important to start this video with a quick disclaimer. LSD is a Schedule I drug here in the United States, meaning that manufacturing, possessing, or distributing the drug is illegal unless you have a research license to do so. This video is meant for educational purposes, as well as furthering the conversation as it pertains to any potential therapeutic and legal usage for psychedelics, nothing else. Lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD, was first synthesized in 1938 by the Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann. It was the 25th compound he had synthesized from the fungus ergot, which grows on rye, and he didn't believe it to be psychedelic at all. It wasn't until 5 years later that Hoffman accidentally dosed himself with the compound and discovered its psychedelic effects, which had to be a wild experience. Even if it wasn't the most, powerful or extreme trip in existence, I can only imagine that was not on his list of expectations for that day. You see, Hoffman had been researching potential medicinal aspects of ergot because ergot alkaloids have multiple effects on the cardiovascular and nervous systems of mammals, such as vasoconstriction and alterations in neurotransmission. Once Hoffman realized what LSD could do, he intentionally dosed himself again in 1943, although the dose was just a bit bigger than it needed to be. Dosages of LSD are measured in micrograms, which are millionths of a gram. There isn't any standardized dosage terminology for LSD, but you'll typically find certain ranges of doses based on how much can be physically present on a paper, sugar cube, or other means of consumption. Around 20 micrograms is seen to be the threshold dose, which means that's how much LSD you'd have to take in order to feel its effects. Anything under that dosage is called microdosing, and is something many believe to have significant potential in boosting creativity, productivity, and interpersonal relationships. Tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley made headlines years ago by openly stating that microdosing LSD and other psychedelics was becoming a norm in their workspace. However, meeting that 20 microgram threshold doesn't necessarily mean that someone is going to feel the psychedelic effects of LSD. It usually requires between 25 to 50 micrograms of LSD in order for the visuals and other effects to begin. However, this is also dependent upon your body type, meaning larger individuals probably wouldn't see any psychedelic effects at this range, while smaller individuals would. Between 50 and 100 micrograms of LSD is largely considered to be a normal or standard dose of LSD. Regardless of your body type, this is where you'd be feeling the psychedelic aspects of the drug, although its intensity can still widely vary based upon your body type. Typically, doses in this range aren't overwhelming, but you wouldn't be considered sober. 100 to 150 micrograms is where most users begin to see strong visuals and start experiencing other effects, including, oftentimes, anxiety, meaning bad trips become more likely. But it's important to understand that dosage doesn't equate to bad trips. So just because someone took a large dose doesn't guarantee that they're going to have a bad trip. Anything beyond 150 micrograms is considered a large dose of LSD, but around the 400 to 500 range and even beyond is considered a heroic dose of the drug. Many users out there will consume LSD in the thousands of microgram range, and many will argue that psychedelics should only be consumed if it's in the heroic dosages, since this is where benefits are seen to be at their largest, especially when it comes to detaching from the ego. However, large doses of LSD are not something to take lightly and have been known to affect individuals for years afterwards in sufficiently large doses, oftentimes in undesirable ways. And in case you're wondering, Albert Hoffman took a dose of 250 micrograms in April 1943 and concluded that somewhere around 50 micrograms was likely the ideal dose. So you're probably curious to know, what can someone expect to experience with LSD? Speaking of curiosity, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, CuriosityStream. Without doubt, CuriosityStream is one of my favorite sponsors that we have on this channel. I genuinely watch CuriosityStream all the time. CuriosityStream offers award-winning and original documentary films, shows, and series that you can't find anywhere else. With content spanning science, nature, history, technology, military history, music, food, and more, CuriosityStream is streaming heaven if you're a nerd like me. New content drops every single week, and with plans starting at under $5 a month, you can gain access to thousands of hours of high-quality documentaries and series. They have both monthly and annual plans available, which means you can choose the plan that works best for you and your budget. Currently, I'm in the midst of watching iHuman, which wonders what the future will look like as tech companies and governments lead the research and development of artificial intelligence. If you're someone who is curious about the intersection of humanity and technology, you'll absolutely love it. If you're interested, go to curiositystream.com/IOHA or scan the QR code for unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and nonfiction series. And for our fans, use promo code IOHA and you will save 25% off. You can find the link in the description below. LSD is an odorless and colorless substance that doesn't have much of a taste, if any at all. In fact, if the user tastes something bitter, that's a good indicator that the substance isn't LSD, but instead a fake form of it that can be extremely harmful to the body. LSD is initially synthesized in a crystal form and is extremely potent. In order to lower its strength, it's diluted into a liquid, and then droplets of the drug can be added to an absorbent paper or even sugar cubes. It can also be found in tablets, capsules, or liquid form. So based on this, you've probably figured out that LSD is mostly consumed orally, but it also can be injected intravenously. But depending on the method of consumption, it's important to know that LSD can actually be absorbed at multiple different spots in the digestive tract. If a liquid dropper or paper is used, LSD will primarily be absorbed through the mucosal membranes in the oral cavity, which means it'll get into circulation quicker than if swallowed by capsule or tablet form. If it is swallowed, LSD will be partially absorbed by the stomach, although most of it will be absorbed by the small intestine and brought towards the liver and body circulation. Historically, this is where things get cloudy for LSD, and that's because given its Schedule I status here in the United States, there hasn't been a ton of research detailing exactly what happens from here. However, since 2015, multiple studies have been working to clear this up, and we're finally starting to get a clearer picture. In human beings, LSD is rapidly metabolized into several different metabolites, such as 2-oxo-3-hydroxy-LSD, or OH-LSD, and 6-norlysergic acid diethylamide, or NOR-LSD. It appears that enzymes in the liver, specifically monoamine oxidase enzymes, as well as multiple cytochrome P450 enzymes, are at least partially responsible for the breakdown. Interestingly, OH-LSD is the major urinary metabolite of LSD and can also be detected in blood plasma. One study showed that 13% of orally ingested LSD finds its way into the urine in the form of OH-LSD, which isn't believed to be psychedelic. That same study showed that only 1% of the orally ingested LSD remains LSD and is excreted into the urine by the kidneys. That means the other 86% of the ingested LSD is converted into various other metabolites, of which there are many. The goal now is to discover the entirety of the metabolites and what effect they each have on the body. But our current understanding suggests that most of the effects of LSD and its metabolites come from their relationship that they have with the various serotonin receptors throughout the body. Serotonin belongs to the class of monoamine neurotransmitters, along with dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. It's derived from the amino acid tryptophan and is produced in both the brain and digestive tract. Serotonin participates or even outright regulates a wide range of effects in the body, including appetite control, bone health,
You're unique, and your identity should be too. Help protect yourself with TELUS Online Security.
blood clotting, sexual function, temperature regulation, digestion, social behavior, impulse control, learning, memory, as well as the regulation of sleep and mood. To influence or accomplish these effects, serotonin binds to numerous receptors in the body called the 5-HT receptors. These receptors are distributed all throughout the body, including multiple regions in the brain, blood platelets, the heart, lungs, and multiple tissues of the digestive tract. LSD and its metabolites are known to bind to and activate several of these receptors. And in some cases, they are partial agonists, and in other cases, they are full agonists. The difference here is that partial agonists don't have a full effect at the receptor site, while full agonists obviously do, based on their name. And current research suggests that the primary target for LSD, at least in regards to the psychedelic effects of LSD, is going to be what's known as the 5-HT2A receptor, where LSD is a partial agonist. 5-HT2A receptors are found in multiple locations in the brain, but are especially dense in regions associated with learning and cognition, which includes the entirety of the cerebral cortex, as well as the hypothalamus and amygdala of the limbic system. This is important to understanding LSD because these regions are essentially responsible for the human experience. The amygdala plays a role in memory, decision-making, and is responsible for negative emotions. The occipital cortex is responsible for visual processing. The temporal cortex is responsible for auditory processing. The frontal cortex is responsible for motor control, rationality, empathy, and more. However, LSD and its metabolites have been shown to bind to more than just serotonin receptors, but also dopamine, histamine, adrenergic, and even opioid receptors. So while plenty of science still needs to be done in order to properly understand how manipulating these receptors creates the characteristic effects of LSD, it's not all that surprising given the location and distribution of these receptors that we see the effects that we do. So again, what are these effects? First up, let's discuss some of the cognitive effects of LSD, beginning with visual hallucinations. These include seeing shapes, colors, and motions that are not really there and are often more vivid with the eyes closed. Then there's something called synesthesia, which is the blending of the senses. So sounds may be seen or colors may be heard. While the full mechanism of how LSD influences synesthesia is still being explored, it's likely a product of those serotonin receptors being activated in such a way that regions of the brain that don't normally communicate, or if they do, they communicate more subtly, are now cross-talking with each other in unique ways. It's also thought that LSD can influence the amount of sensory stimuli being processed, causing the brain to be flooded with information that it would normally filter out. You'll also see enhanced pattern recognition with LSD consumption, as well as a loss of ego and boundaries at higher doses. Physically, dilated pupils, nausea, sweating, and muscle weakness are all common, although the dose heavily influences this. So what about the harmful effects of LSD? Every bit of data we have available to us suggests that overdosing on LSD is technically possible, but practically impossible. People have consumed an incredible amount of LSD and physically are fine about 24 to 48 hours afterwards, and that's at maximum. This is because LSD only lasts in the body for about 12 hours or so. Higher doses means more receptors are being taken up by the LSD and its metabolites, but again, the LSD can only last so long in the body, but that doesn't mean that higher doses are a pleasant experience. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, increased heart rate, and more have all been shown to occur with LSD consumption. LSD is detectable in the urine for up to 4 days afterwards and up to 12 hours or so through the bloodstream. The psychological effects of LSD, however, can last a long time, and arguably this is the reason LSD is consumed for many people. It's to have these psychological effects. But it's important to understand that this isn't a ride that you can choose to stop whenever you want. An improper environment or reason for consumption, such as partying, can lead to dangerous decisions. Panic, aggression, and depression are all possible. If the user is having a bad trip, they can become hyper-focused on death and even feel as though they are physically dying. For some people, though, that's the entire point. Like, that's the entire point. Or at least to encounter that and then overcome it. But still, though, like, where you physically are after consuming the LSD and where that's happening is not a small matter. On top of that, for some, the psychological impact of an LSD trip can last for months or even years, again, depending on the dose and the overall environment. For some people, psychosis is a legitimate possibility with a sufficient dose or an improper environment. Look, this is a powerful substance. It significantly alters the perception of reality. To assume that everything is going to be okay just because you can't physically overdose and die from it, honestly, that's reckless. Now, this may sound strange, but for the same reasons that LSD can be harmful, it can also be beneficial given the correct dosage and circumstances for consumption. Psychedelics as a whole are in the midst of a needed reevaluation and overall revolution. While LSD isn't getting the same attention as, say, ketamine or psilocybin in regards to treating psychological conditions, the data does suggest it has real potential if done correctly. Is that potential, greater than ketamine or psilocybin, or is it the same as them? I couldn't tell you, but that doesn't mean that it has no benefit. And again, it's a Schedule I drug here in the United States. So we at the Institute of Human Anatomy are not out here advocating for people to just go out and consume the product. Instead, we're hoping there will be more research done on LSD to determine the efficacy in regards to treating psychological conditions such as PTSD and grief. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to click the link in the description below and get 25% off unlimited access to CuriosityStream today. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.
Welcome to the Huberman Lab Guest Series, where I and an expert guest discuss science and science-based tools for everyday life. I'm Andrew Huberman, and I'm a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine. Today's episode is the third in the 6-episode series on fitness, exercise, and performance. Today's episode is all about endurance and fat loss. That is, the specific protocols required to achieve the 4 different kinds of endurance and how to maximize fat loss. Dr. Andy Galpin, great to be back. Today, we're going to talk about endurance. And I'm very interested in this conversation because I, like many other people, strive to get a certain amount of cardiovascular work in each week. Maybe a long-ish jog, maybe a swim, ride the bike, etc. But when I think about the word endurance, the idea that almost immediately comes to mind is about doing something for a long period of time repeatedly. But I have a feeling that there are other ways to trigger this adaptation that we call the endurance adaptation. So I'm excited to learn about that. I'm also excited to learn about the fuel systems in the body that allow for endurance and other modes of repeated activity. So in order to kick things off, I'd love for you to frame the conversation by telling us, what is endurance? And are there indeed a large variety of ways to induce what we call this endurance adaptation?
Sure. The way I want to start actually here is calling back to some of the things we talked about in our previous conversations, which are really people exercise for 3 reasons. Number 1, you want to feel better. Number 2, you want to look a certain way. And then number 3, you want to be able to do that for a long time, right? So you need the way that we say it in sports is look good, feel good, play good, right? So I want some sort of functionality to be able to perform a certain way, whatever that is for you. You want to be able to look a certain way, that whatever that matters for you. And then you want to be able to do that for a long time. So when it comes to endurance, we have a bunch of misnomers here, which is the same thing with the strength training or resistance exercise side, where we wanted to dispel this myth that I lift weights only because I want to gain muscle or play a sport. And I want to do cardio because I want to either lose fat or for long health sake. And just like we smashed that myth from the strength training side, I want to smash it from the endurance training side. There are so many other reasons that you want to perform endurance training, regardless of your goal, right? Whether it is longevity, whether it is performance, or whether it is aesthetics. And so I want to cover all those reasons, exactly what to do, protocols, of course, and why those things are working that way. In general, though, the quick answer is really endurance comes down to 2 independent factors. Factor number 1 is fatigue management. And then factor number 2 is fueling. And that's all it really comes down to. So all the different types of training are going to reach a limitation, which are either, again, your ability to deal with some sort of fatigue, and that's generally a fatigue signal. The other one is managing some sort of restriction of energy input. And a lot of the spoiler here is a lot of the times people think it's a fueling issue, and really it's a fatigue management issue, or the opposite. And to have a complete health spectrum, regardless of whether you're a high performance athlete like I typically deal with, or general public, you need to be able to do both. Manage fatigue as well as understand fuel storage. So that's really what we're going to get into today.
Fantastic. I can't wait. Before we dive in, I'm going to ask you what I often ask people who are expert in their respective fields, which is there any non-obvious tool or mechanism or tool and mechanism that can allow people to access better endurance? You know, when I think about training for endurance, again, I think about trying to run longer and longer each week, or swim further and further, and so on. But I do wonder whether or not there are other forms of training that can amplify the endurance adaptation that I or most people perhaps don't think of as endurance.
Sure. The way I want to answer this is, if we look back and think about how we've answered that question with power and strength, and force production. It is really about how much can you produce maximally once. What you're asking now is, how can I repeat that same quality of performance? If that's the case, endurance really comes down to your ability to maintain proper mechanics. That's going to, like, the biggest way we can increase your endurance exponentially very quickly is mechanical. And this is starting with breathing. And so we need to be breathing properly. We need to have proper posture and positions, and then we need to be moving well. Efficiency is going to trump force always for endurance. The other side of the equation is not that. You can have a little bit of leaks in your mechanics and still squat well or jump high and be fine, because you don't have to suffer those consequences repeatedly, right? That's going to drain you over time. So the quickest way to improve endurance is to improve mechanics. And the mechanical thing I would go after first is your breathing techniques, your pattern, your entire approach, as well as your posture. And then from there, the third one would be your movement technique.
Is it possible to describe the best way to breathe when doing endurance training, or is it far more complex than that? And if it is far more complex than that, then certainly we can get into it during today's episode.
Yeah, it is both of those. I will give you a quick answer though. A lot of the times you can kind of hit the cheat code, which is nasal breathing. There's plenty of times when you don't want to nasal breathe or don't need to nasal breathe, but just again, as like a one tool that is for a pretty general answer, if you can do that, a lot of the times that will fix breathing mechanics just by default. And we can maybe talk about why that is later, but that would be my sort of one sentence bullet point answer immediately of how to get in the right positions. The second one would be simply looking at your posture, right? So whether you're on a bike or you're doing a lift or you're running, if you're literally hunched over and your ribs are touching your femur or getting closer and closer, like tends to happen on a bike or an air assault thing for somebody I've seen recently.
This morning, I was on the assault bike doing a sprint, and I asked Andy, Dr. Galpin, to critique my form and anything else he wanted to critique so that I could improve. And he did comment on my rather C-shaped posture.
Correct.
Encouraged me to be more upright, which I should probably do now as well. And he also cued me to the fact that during a 1 minute sprint, there is something that is quote unquote magic that happens right about the 40-second mark.
Yep.
And I use that as a milestone to look for. And indeed, something does happen at the 40 seconds into a 1 minute sprint where all of a sudden it does seem to get much easier for reasons I don't understand. Maybe you can tell me that, but it certainly had nothing to do with my posture. My posture needs improvement. Thank you.
Well, yeah. So breathing mechanics and breathing strategies. People tend to be over breathing early on, and this is going to lead to problems later. So having a more strategic breathing pattern and approach is, again, a very quick solution.
I know that we're going to dive very deep into the mechanisms of energy and metabolism and endurance today, but as long as we're having a discussion about these brief sort of tidbits of how to improve endurance, are there any other ways to improve endurance that are of relatively short time investment, even if they require a lot of energy?
Sure. The classic paradigm you're going to find here is steady state long duration posed up against what a lot of folks will now call higher intensity interval training specifically. And there's a lot of misconceptions here. The quick answer is you need to be doing both. And there's probably a bunch of stuff in between that you should be practicing. If you honestly want to maximize those three factors we talked about at the beginning, you need to be training across this full spectrum. Just like I told you to train across the full spectrum of your lifting, we want to be doing the same thing here. So are there independent special factors that can happen with the shorter time length, higher intensity stuff? Absolutely. There's also magic that happens on the other end of that spectrum. So it's very important that people don't just choose one side, because what tends to happen is people either go with I'm going to do 30 or 45 minutes of steady state stuff. That's it. Or I'm going to do the opposite, which I'm going to leave that stuff on the table, not do it, because I only want to do high intensity intervals because I can get it done in 5 minutes. So there's magic on both sides of the equation. We want to get into all of that. But just to answer your question directly, there's a whole bunch of things you can do in under 1 minute that are convenient to do. And there's a wonderful set of papers out of a couple of laboratories in Canada that champion this idea that's called exercise snacks. So there's a series of studies that have been done here that are really interesting. And they've looked at a couple of things that are noteworthy. One of them is a 20-second bout of all-out work. And this is actually done in workers in an office. And so what they had them do is run upstairs. And I believe it was about 60 steps is what it took them. Something along the order of 20 seconds exactly. And they repeated that about once every 4 hours. So really, it's just, you go to work, you get, put your coffee in your bag down or whatever, you run up a flight of stairs, 20 seconds later, then you go right back to work at lunch. And then before you go home, you sort of repeat it there. And if you repeat that, that's multiple times a week, you're going to do that. I think in one of the interventions, it was 3 times a week for 6 weeks, 18 total times you did that. And what you'll see is a noticeable improvement, and this is statistically significant improvements in cardiorespiratory fitness, specifically VO2 max, as well as a number of cognitive benefits, work productivity, etc. That can happen in as little as 20 seconds. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to shower. You don't have to do anything like that. Just find the stairs, run up and down them a few times. Now, you may have noticed, you actually sort of caught me yesterday. I did that right here, right? We had a little bit of a break. I was feeling an energy lull. I ran up the stairs 3 or 4 times, felt a lot better. So that can actually also help. They ran another study where they looked at that following a giant high glycemic index meal. And what they saw, and then they took insulin measures and a whole bunch of other biological markers associated that you want to pay attention to with the high glycemic index meal. And they looked at those immediately, an hour, 3 hours, 6 hours as opposed. And it was very clear that same intervention was able to improve postprandial glucose control, insulin, and a whole bunch of other factors in addition to that. So if you are the sort of type who's like, wow, I'm in an office all day, maybe also had a giant high glycemic index meal, not the best approach, but a little bit of mitigation there can just be running up a flight of stairs or doing something like that for as little as 20 seconds. So there's a lot of magic and power in maximal exertion.
If one does not have access to a flight of stairs at work, could they do jumping jacks?
Absolutely. I mean, you could do anything you really wanted. It's not the mode of exercise that matters here. It is simply the exertion. You just get up as hard as you can. You could do burpees. You could do any number of things. You could sprint down your road, down the hallway, back and forth. The mode is just something that was easy for the scientists to control. And X number of steps, people could do it. You're not going to fall, hurt yourself, things like that.
Just to remind me, it's once every 4 hours, 1 minute of all
20
out,
seconds.
20 seconds, excuse me. 20 seconds of essentially all out exertion.
Yep.
While remaining safe, not going so fast up the stairs or doing jumping jacks so
And
fast.
certainly not down the stairs. Up the stairs, please.
Escalators don't count. Well, I suppose they count if they're if you're moving if you're not remaining on the same steps. In fact, in an airport recently, I saw somebody walking against the the conveyor while talking on the phone while waiting for their flight to take off. And I thought it's genius, right? It looked a little awkward.
Who cares?
Yeah, but it was.
I have looked
very
awkward
cool.
in every airport I've been in for the last 15 years for these exact reasons, doing wild stuff like that.
Yeah, well, nothing's more awkward than not being able to walk to the end of the terminal simply because one isn't familiar with walking that far carrying a couple of suitcases.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the other fit test. The
100%.
suitcase carrier in the airport. Oh, I love this. So once every 4 hours, 20 seconds. So maybe once when arriving to work, once 4 hours in, and then 4 hours. And most people are probably at work somewhere, 8 plus or minus 2 hours.
Now, one thing I actually really want to make clear, because your audience is so incredible, they tend to be really excited about these protocols and they follow them exactly as written. That's not exactly how science works. So it doesn't necessarily have to be every 4 hours. It doesn't have to be 3 times a day. It doesn't have to be 20 seconds. They literally built that protocol because they're trying to replicate a real life scenario. Maybe you're in an office building, you're generally there for 8 hours. Let's see if you did one every sort of so if you want to do it 4 times a week, great. If you can do it only 10 seconds, amazing. You're probably going to get the same benefits. Those are not the details to pay attention to. The detail to pay attention to is every so often, multiple times a day, try to get your heart rate up really quickly. Doesn't require sweating, doesn't require anything else. There's no warm up associated with it. Again, you need a minute break in between meetings or whatever, and you can sprint up them. I do this all the time in my house. When you have those days when you're on like 7 straight hours of Zooms, etc., You can get out of 20 seconds. I run to my garage, which is over there. I hop on the air bike and I will just smash out 30 seconds as fast as I can and then walk right back in.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to start.
Yeah. Just also, you can just put one of those things, which I do also, just put one in your office and hop over right over there. You know, the whole entire thing now literally takes 23 seconds.
Before we begin, I'd like to emphasize that this podcast is separate from my teaching and research roles at Stanford. It is also separate from Dr. Andy Galpin's teaching and research roles at Cal State Fullerton. It is, however, part of our desire and effort to bring zero cost to consumer information about science and science-related tools to the general public. In keeping with that theme, we'd like to thank the sponsors of today's podcast. Our first sponsor is Momentous. Momentous makes supplements of the absolute highest quality. The Huberman Lab podcast is proud to be partnering with Momentous for several important reasons. First of all, as I mentioned, their supplements are of extremely high quality. Second of all, their supplements are generally in single ingredient formulations. If you're going to develop a supplementation protocol, you're going to want to focus mainly on using single ingredient formulations. With single ingredient formulations, you can devise the most logical and effective and cost-effective supplementation regimen for your goals. In addition, Momentous supplements ship internationally. And this is, of course, important because we realize that many of the Huberman Lab podcast listeners reside outside the United States. If you'd like to try the various supplements mentioned on the Huberman Lab podcast, in particular supplements for hormone health, for sleep optimization, for focus, as well as a number of other things, including exercise recovery, you can go to Live Momentous, spelled O-U-S. So that's livemomentous.com/Huberman. Today's episode is also brought to us by Levels. Levels is a program that lets you see how different foods and activities affect your health by giving you real-time feedback on your blood glucose using a continuous glucose monitor. Many people are aware that their blood sugar, that is their blood glucose level, is critical for everything from fat loss to muscle gain to healthy cognition and indeed aging of the brain and body. Most people do not know, however, how different foods and different activities, including exercise, or different temperatured environments impact their blood glucose levels. And yet blood glucose is exquisitely sensitive to all of those things. I first started using Levels about a year ago as a way to understand how different foods, exercise, and timing of food relative to exercise and quality of sleep at night impact my blood glucose levels. And I've learned a tremendous amount from using Levels. It's taught me when best to eat, what best to eat, when best to exercise, how best to exercise, and how to modulate my entire schedule from work to exercise and even my sleep. So if you're interested in learning more about Levels and trying a continuous glucose monitor yourself, go to levels.link/Huberman. That's levels.link/Huberman. Today's episode is also brought to us by Element. Element is an electrolyte drink that contains the exact ratios of the electrolytes sodium, magnesium, and potassium to optimize cellular functioning for mental and physical performance. Most people realize that hydration is key. We need to ingest enough fluids in order to feel our best and perform our best. But what most people do not realize is that the proper functioning of our cells and nerve cells, neurons in particular, requires that sodium, magnesium, and potassium be present in the correct ratios. Now, of course, people with prehypertension and hypertension need to be careful about their sodium intake. But what a lot of people don't realize is that if you drink caffeine, if you exercise, and in particular, if you're following a very clean diet, that is not a lot of processed foods, which of course is a good thing, chances are you're not getting enough sodium, potassium, and magnesium to optimize mental and physical performance. Element contains a science-backed ratio of 1,000 milligrams, that's 1 gram of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, and no sugar. If you'd like to try Element, you can go to Drink Element, that's lmnt.com/Huberman, to get a free Element sample pack with your purchase. Again, that's Drink Element, lmnt.com/Huberman, to claim a free sample pack. So tell me about endurance. What is endurance? How do I get more endurance? And how does it work?
When we think about endurance, I would like to open up the conversation to include more things than people generally do when they hear the word endurance. So if we just think about what you typically ask your body to do or would like to ask your body to do, and we just walk through them, it's going to be things like this. Number one, I want to have energy throughout the day. That's actually a form of endurance. Great. I don't want to have these lulls and fatigue, and I want to feel fantastic as I move throughout my activities of daily living, whatever those may be. Work, exercise, enjoyment, paying attention, focus, all that stuff. Great. That's one thing. Another thing you want to ask your body to do is, I want to be able to repeat some small effort in a muscle group and not and feel great about that. This is what we generally call muscular endurance. So this is something like, I want to be able to walk up those 10 flights of steps and my quads aren't burning at the end of it, right? Or it even gives me energy. Another thing you'll want to ask your body to do is to be able to perform a tremendous amount of work for a longer period of time, something in the realm of 20 to 80 seconds. So this could be something like if you're surfing and you've got to paddle extremely hard for a minute to get on top of a wave, or you're out riding your bike and you need to be able to get up a hill and it's a very steep hill. These are going to take maximal efforts for some small amount of time, and then you'll get back up there. We tend to call that maximum anaerobic capacity. So that the max amount of work you can perform at a high rate for some amount of seconds to like maybe a minute. Past that is your ability to repeat an effort kind of like that for something like 5 to 15 minutes. And this is the example would be run a mile, right? Some interval like that, which is a longer distance, right? That is going to be your maximum aerobic capacity. Okay? Another thing you're going to want your body to do is what we call sustained position. So this is, you want to be able to sit in your chair at work and have perfect posture for 20, 30, 40 minutes, right? You want to be able to stand in line at a grocery store for 15 minutes and not have a breakdown in posture. So you want to be able to maintain position when you're riding your bike, you're not collapsing, you're doing any of these activities and you don't get hurt or lose efficiency simply because you couldn't sustain basic positions, right? Whatever those shapes and positions need to be. Okay. And then the last one is a maximum distance. So you want to be able to go for a longer hike or have just a long day at Disneyland for whatever it needs to be and feel great at the end of it, right? So the goal with all of these things is not can you just do them, but can you do them and then you feel good afterwards. So we're back in a right position where they give you energy, you feel good about it, and it's not just something you had to do and you regretted and you felt awful. So those are the factors I think about when someone says, I want better endurance, is I want to walk backwards and say, okay, when you say endurance, what do you mean? And that's generally the things I've come across is if you can handle all of those things, you're going to feel like you're in fantastic shape. You're going to feel your recovery is going to be excellent and your physical performance in the gym or in any of the sporting activities you do will be enhanced.
Given what you told us a little bit earlier, that endurance really reflects fatigue management and energy production, how do each and both of those things relate to endurance at a mechanistic level?
Sure.
I mean, really what I'm asking is, what is fatigue management and what is energy production?
In order to do that, it's important that we understand all of those functional capacities that I just talked about. They all have different points of failure. Okay. So in order to then work backwards and say, well, how do I optimize my performance in all those categories? We need to go through each one and figure out, well, where am I failing? Some of them are going to be failing because of fatigue management, and some of them will be failing because of energy production issues. So if we walk through a little bit of how we make energy and how we handle fatigue, then we're going to have a better understanding of exactly what to do for each one of these categories if you feel like one of them in particular is worse for you or lagging behind, or if in general you just want to improve all of them. All right, now I'm going to make a little bit of a 90-degree turn here. I'm going to do it with strategy though, I promise. And I want to ask you a very simple question. How do you lose weight?
I was taught that the calories in, calories out thermodynamics of energy utilization governs most everything. That is, if I'm ingesting less caloric energy than I burn, then I'm going to lose weight. And if I'm ingesting exactly as much as I burn, I'll maintain weight. And if I ingest more than I burn, then I'll gain weight.
Sure, that is the approach you would take. What I'm asking really is, how are you actually physically losing the weight?
So my understanding is that we have different fuel sources in the body: glycogen, which is stored in muscle and liver; body fat, which is stored in mainly white adipose tissue, and which is subcutaneous and around our organs, intravisceral fat; and that we can also use protein as a fuel. And then, as I recall, there's also a phosphocreatine system. And I think you're going to tell me that each of these systems is tapped into on different timescales and perhaps according to different levels of exertion. And I'm certain that what I just said is not exhaustive, but hopefully it is most or entirely correct.
Pretty correct. What's that got to do with fat loss?
At some point, body fat stores adipocytes, fat cells are going to start liberating fat as a fuel source. And the stimulus for that, I'm assuming, is going to be that other fuel sources are either depleted, or that the energy and metabolic systems of the body, I don't want to say decide because they don't have their own consciousness,
Sure.
but are flipped,
Signaled.
are signaling in a way that registers that body fat would be the optimal fuel source given how long or intensely a given activity has been performed.
Okay, we have some stuff to clean up there, but we're still not really answering the question. How am I actually losing that body fat?
How is it actually leaving the body?
Correct.
My understanding is that it leaves the body through respiration.
Aha. So now we have some interesting things to talk about. How am I actually losing fat via respiration? What the hell does that even mean? How is something that occupied this physical space on the side of me leaving my body through my mouth? And there's a very clear answer there, right? Which I'm sure you're queued up to. When you take a breath in, you're generally breathing in oxygen, O2. There's some other things, but we'll just stick to oxygen. When you exhale, you're breathing out CO2. The difference between those two is that carbon molecule. Well, one of the things that's important to understand here is all of your carbohydrates, which is that word itself is a carbon that has been hydrated. So it is a carbon molecule attached to a water molecule. It is a simple chain of carbons. Your fat molecules are also chains of carbon. All of metabolism really, in terms of energy production, is simply trying to figure out a way to break those carbon bonds. As a result, we get energy from that. We use that energy to create a molecule called ATP, which is the central source of energy for any living being, right? That carbon is then floating around in free form, which is bad news internally. So we've got to figure out a way to get that carbon out of our system. So all of energy production, all of fatigue management really comes down to this core issue of how are we handling carbon and how are we moving it around the body? And so what we do is we do this sneaky thing. So another question I like to ask people is, why do we breathe?
Well, for two reasons. To bring oxygen into the system and to offload carbon dioxide. But the neural trigger for breathing is when carbon dioxide hits a threshold level in the set of neurons in the brainstem and elsewhere, activate the phrenic nerve or the gasp reflex or a combination of things, and we inhale or inhale.
Right. So a reduction of oxygen intake generally doesn't stimulate ventilation unless you're at altitude. Then that sort of changes, right? In general, it's an elevation in CO2 that's going to stimulate breathing off. The only reason you bring in O2 for the most part is to get rid of the CO2. Oxygen is not a fuel source. It is not a way, and it works the same with fire, by the way. So you know you have to have oxygen present for a fire to go, and if you squelch oxygen, the fire will go out, right? That's sort of half of how those like fire extinguishers work. But we think then that means oxygen is the fuel. It is not the fuel. It is something entirely different. It is a necessary product that is necessary for the metabolism process to actually occur. All right, so we're kind of dancing around an idea here, which is this carbon cycle of life. So what happens in plants is they generally will breathe in the opposite and breathe out the opposite of humans. So a plant will breathe in CO2 and exhale O2. All right, this is why we have to have a certain amount of these things in algae and forests and trees and stuff to maintain this O2, CO2 balance in our atmosphere. We do the opposite. And so we have this wonderful circle of life. We breathe in O2, breathe out CO2. They do the opposite. Well, what happens is because carbohydrates are long chains of carbon and fats are as well. Generally, when we think about fats, by the way, it's important to understand that structure a little bit. So if we think about triglycerides, it is a 3-carbon backbone chain of glycerol. So it's 1, 2, 3. And horizontally running off of each one of those are fatty acid chains, right? And so we form this structure that looks like an E, right? Like the letter E, 3 in the back, and then 3 chains coming off of it. Each of those chains are called fatty acids, and each of those fatty acids are a length of carbon, right? Or a number of carbons strung together. However many carbons are there determines which type of fatty acid it is, right? So stearic acid, linoleic acid, like any different number of things. It's also what determines whether or not it is a monounsaturated or polyunsaturated, as if carbon requires a special thing called a double bond. So if there's a double bond across every carbon and carbon, then they're all fully saturated and you're great. If there's any of them that are not double bonded, I mean, in fact, an example, if there is one that doesn't have a double bond, that is now called monounsaturated. And if there are many, it is called polyunsaturated. So there's pros and cons to all of these things, right? In either case, we're still talking long carbon chains. So what a plant will do is bring in carbon. And then it has this wonderful ability to use energy from the sun called photosynthesis. And it can take those carbons that it inhales and use the energy from the sun to form a bond. Now, in our prior discussion, when we were going over hypertrophy, we talked about the energy that was required to go through protein synthesis. That's because forming a new atom or a new bond between atoms oftentimes takes energy. In this case, it does. The same thing happens here. So if a plant does not have oxygen or does not have carbon dioxide in the air, it has no fuel. Basically, think about it as that's what it eats. It needs to get nitrogen from the ground and the soil, just like we need to get nitrogen from our protein. But fuel-wise, it needs to get carbon dioxide. Then it needs sun to give it energy so that it can actually form that bond, right? That's what it's getting its fuel from. All right. So if we think about a classic plant that produces either a starch or a fruit, here's what happens. It inhales that carbon and then it starts packing it away. Now, in a root vegetable, what it does is it stores those things together. And if we store that thing and we grow a fruit at the bottom of it, we tend to call those things starches, right? It's going to then take the carbon that is packed away in its root and send it up the tree. And it's going to actually do that by breaking it down into a smaller form of carbohydrate that we tend to often call things like sucrose and glucose. It'll ship that up the tree, it'll go out to the leaves, and it'll convert it into the fruit. And it's going to eventually transform that stuff into smaller carbon things called fructose. And if we think about the fruit or the sugar in fruit, it's often in the form of fructose or sucrose or a combination, and sometimes glucose. So we have these smaller 6 carbon chains, generally in the form of glucose, that are being made from this larger storage of carbohydrates that we call starch, right? So it's packed in together. Your body does the exact same thing. So if it's a potato and it has a whole bunch of glucose packed away, we call it starch. If it's in your quadricep and we pack about a whole bunch of glucose away, we now call it glycogen. If it's in your blood as that 6 carbon chain, we call it glucose. If it's in the tree and in the fruit, we call it fructose. Right? Those are different molecules, but that's effectively the same thing happens. So the biology or the chemistry is almost identical. It just runs in the reverse order. And that's why, again, tubers and potatoes and stuff tend to be starches and fruits tend to be glucose, fructose, and sucrose. So we have this wonderful circle of life. The plants can survive on just breathing in the CO2 and then getting the energy from the sun. We don't have that ability, at least to my knowledge, to run through photosynthesis. So the only way we can get carbon into our system is to actually ingest carbon, which means we have to eat the starch, the fruit, the animal, some other form of stored carbon to get that into our system. We then pack that away. We put the carbohydrates, as you mentioned earlier, either in our liver, our blood, or in our muscles. We put the fat generally in adipose tissue. We'll put a little bit in muscle cells as intramuscular triglycerides. And then the protein we'll use as structure, right? To do different things. We don't like to use protein as material or fuel. It's better used as structure. And what we have to do then is if all of a sudden we realize that storage is getting too much in our body, in other words, we're gaining too much weight, we have to figure out how to get the carbons out of our body. And that is metabolism, right? Anytime we're trying to break a carbon bond so that we can get energy to make ATP, that's going to release the carbon out of our tissue into the blood. We have to bring in oxygen to bind that carbon molecule to make CO2 so that we can exhale it and put it back into the atmosphere.
It's a beautiful description of the circle of life and energy utilization in the human body.
It used to be me, she ate at snack time, but now she loves Yogo. Made with real fruit, smooth, creamy, and tasty. All I can say is whoa. Yogo, snack it up.
I have to ask the question that I'm sure many people are wondering about, which is if indeed we exhale these carbons, and as it relates to fat loss, that is the way that we lose fat if we're in a subcaloric state, for instance. Has it ever been explored as to whether increasing the duration or intensity of exhales can accelerate fat loss? I mean, that's sort of the logical extension of what you described. And here I'm actually interested equally in whether or not the answer is yes, as well as whether it could be no. Because I could imagine if the answer is yes, well, then there's some interesting protocols to emerge from that. But that if it's no, it will reveal to us some important bottlenecks about metabolism and energy utilization.
You ever seen those magicians who like show up and they can tell your mom's name or something like that before you because they can sort of lead you down a path?
Yeah, I mean, not to take us down a deep dive tangent, but I once went to the Magic Castle in Los Angeles, and I was one of the people called up front, and an incredible magician named, I think his name was Ozzy Mind or something. I think that's right. Had me write my name on a card in a Sharpie pen. I ripped up the card. I ripped it up. I put it in my pocket. And at the end of the 10 or 15 minute bout of him doing a bunch of other tricks, he asked me to look in my right shoe, and under my foot in my right shoe was that card intact.
Yeah.
And it was no longer in my pocket. And I swear on my life, I wasn't a collaborator with him.
Yeah.
And to this day, it still gives me chills because I don't know how magic.
Yeah, right. Magic. Well, the reason I say that is I've given that little spiel that I just gave you countless times in my classes. And I would say 99% of the time, as soon as I stop, the very first question is, so can I just like do a bunch of exhales and lose fat? Which is wonderful because I was really hoping you would do that and you rolled right into my trap. You landed perfectly. So I look like a magician over here.
I feel like I should look in my right shoe right now. No, I asked the question because it's the logical extension of what you laid out, but I know biology to be both diabolical and cryptic, but also exquisite in the way that things are arranged. And you don't get something for nothing.
There are no free passes in physiology. That's the saying. No free passes. The answer to your question is yes. 100% yes. In fact, that is the only way to go about it. You have two options. You can ingest less carbon or you can expel more carbon. People always say calories in, calories out. It's really carbon in and carbon out. That's what a calorie is, right? Calorie is the amount of energy we get per breaking a carbon bond. So it's really less in, more out. Less in is fairly obvious, whether that comes in any form. And by the way, this is exactly why the percentage of your intake coming from fats or carbohydrate, it doesn't really matter that much. If you look at fat loss, clinical trials, you guys may have covered this when Lane was in here. I'm sure like this is something he talks about a lot. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because it's not about that. There's nothing magic in those things. They are different and they have different physiological responses. Everything is different, right? No doubt. But in general, it's just simply about carbon intake. Turns out fat has a lot more carbons per mole than carbohydrates do. So there's more calories per mole in there. So if the physical amount of fat needs to come in as a smaller amount, physical amount of carbohydrates will come in as a larger amount, but you can play any number of very high carb, low fat. What matters? Total calories, right? Again, it's not like the only thing that matters, but you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Some percentages in the way can go. Fat loss works fantastic. High fat, low carbohydrate. Why do all these things work? Because it's not about that. It's about total intake of carbon, total exhale. So absolutely, can you lose fat by simply exhaling more? In fact, that is exactly what you did this morning.
When I hopped on the Airdyne bike
when you did anything, right? The question is, can you think of a scenario in which you could have a bunch of increased rates of exhalation that helps in fat loss?
Sure. I can think of a lot of things that will stimulate increased rates of exhalation.
One thing could be simply going, right? And so the question is like, can I literally do some breath protocols where I force exhale and lose fat? And the answer is yes. But what happens? What happens if you do hyperventilation training?
Well, my lab studies cyclic hyperventilation as one of our many deliberate protocols. And one of the most prominent things that one observes is that levels of adrenaline increase very quickly.
Extremely quickly.
People feel jittery, anxious, stressed, and unless they are consciously trying to anchor their thinking about what that means and the benefits to persisting, typically they abort the cyclic hyperventilation protocol really quickly.
Within seconds, right? You will feel tingling, sweating, all kinds of things. You're hyperventilating, right? And We could talk ad nauseum about how that changes everything from adrenaline to focus to a whole bunch of things. So unfortunately, a strategy of sitting around, just exhaling more than you inhale, technically helps you lose more fat, but it's not going to last very long. So then the question is, well, how do I get into a situation or a scenario in which I can increase my rate of expiration where I'm not going to pass out and I'm not going and altering hypocapnia and hypercapnia issues? Any idea of a situation in which you would have an enhanced rate of expiration without worrying about passing out?
Sure. Steady state exercise.
Or not steady state exercise, lifting weights, intervals, moderate training, repeated, any of these things. They all work equally for fat loss because all they're doing is increasing respiration rate. They're saying increased demand for energy, increased exhalation. That's the trick here. And when you equate these things to that, they have equal success in fat loss. It doesn't matter, theoretically, where you're getting it from. And so when we get into this idea of, well, what are the best training strategies for fat loss? It doesn't matter which one of these tactics you pick, as long as you maintain a consistent adherence over time. Because of this exact fact, it doesn't matter if you're burning quote unquote fat in the exercise session, or if you're burning carbohydrates in the exercise session.
I have to pee, you guys. Really bad. Oh, I think my kidney hurts. Ow. Very bad, yo. Oh. Yeah, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? Oh. Yo. So I don't know what to do right now. Oh. Oh, dude. I don't know what happened to Bum. Fucking ran off. Fuck this. Be back.